We are nothing sacred. We are nothing sacred. We are nothing sacred.
With Maxwell Silverhammer.
We are nothing sacred. With cruise control. We are nothing sacred.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Welcome.
right.
This is Nothing Sacred interview. I am Maxwell Silverhammer.
And I am Cruise Control.
And with us, we have Glenna from the 911 Wellness Project. She's also a 911 supervisor. Glenna, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, and like we do with all military and first responders, in the beginning of the shows when we have you guys on, because we do consider what you do first responder as well, we got to thank you for your service.
Yep.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much. And people think, and here's something we always talk about as well. And this is why we thank people, just to remind it that there's a lot of people that can't do these jobs, not because just physically and physical, but mentally. And that obviously does include being able to handle crises on the phone and verbally, and actually dealing with these kind of crises. And it does take its toll on you. And I know I wouldn't do it. Now, I think Max, just to start off this, I think Max is always one of the reasons why this hits home with Max. I think you always wanted to do this kind of thing. You would love to be a dispatcher if you could.
Oh, really?
I did. Yes. Yeah. When I was actually in college, this is, I don't know if you know this, Glenna, by listening to some of the shows, but I'm actually completely blind and have been since birth.
Yes.
So I was talking to my counselor at Bureau of Services for the Blind when I was about 18 or 19. Now, keep in mind, when I went in there, I told her, she was like, well, what is it you want to do? And I said, well, I don't know. I might go to law school. I might, so I was just kind of throwing that out there. So I hit her up and I said, hey, listen, what about getting a job as a 911 call taker or something? And she goes, well, I always thought you wanted to be a lawyer. And it's like, well, no, you dumb bitch. This is just an intro. So, but yes, this is always, I love stuff like this. And this is why I've been trying for like years now to try to get somebody who works with in the 911 call centers on our show. And one lady said, no, the PTSD was too much. And she didn't like to rehash a lot of that. And I said, oh, okay, that's cool. I dig it. But what got you into this kind of work anyway? How do you even fall into this?
Well, it kind of fell into my lap. You said we can be uncensored, so I'm going to be.
Please do.
So when I was, we'll start at the beginning. This is what 911 dispatchers hate when they start. Well, I was born. I grew up in a Christian Science household, so we didn't go to doctors. It was kind of like a cult type setting where, you just followed along with whatever the religion told you. So I never went to doctors. I'm blind in my left eye. I've been since birth.
Oh, wow.
And I'm
so am I.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
I'm legally blind as well. I'm blind in my left eye with coloboma 2400 in my right eye. So I understand. No depth perception, baby. No 3D.
Yeah.
Anyways, keep going.
I still have my concealed weapon permit. So, just stay away from me.
All right.
Damn right.
So when I was 19, so I became an EMT, and I wanted to be a paramedic on, I live in California. The Highway Patrol had a program where you can be an officer on the airship, and you could work and do different things. And that's what I wanted to do. That's always what I wanted to do. Nobody could ever tell me no. I'm one of 5 kids. So not that I was ignored by my family, but I was the 4th of 5, they'd seen it all and done it all. So I could pretty much do what I wanted. So that initial assessment with a physician to get cleared to go do all my stuff, when he kind of laughed at me and said, you'll never shoot a gun. You have no depth perception. You can't see anything. So you'll never be a cop. And I was devastated. So I kept going on with my EMT. I had aspirations of going to paramedic school. But like it always happens, you meet a guy, you fall in love, and then your life is just shot, right?
That's it. Right?
That's a good way of looking at it.
So 32 years later, I'm still married to that guy.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
He was a paramedic and a firefighter, and I was working as a dispatcher. Well, I was working as an EMT and then as a dispatcher, because I was pregnant, and so that's where you put everybody when they're pregnant. You put them in dispatch. So that's where I got my first taste of what it's like to like be in control and like to understand, and I just felt I could do so much more. And for the first time in my life, like I'm now 2021, I'm like, okay, this may be my calling. But I worked for a private air ambulance company, so we were called tertiary care. So I didn't take 911s. And then 3 o'clock in the morning, this is gonna date me. 3 o'clock in the morning, I get a fax, and it's a newspaper advertisement.
Oh, jeez.
And it's from one of the medics that I work with, and he says, you need to apply for this. And it was a job as a 911 dispatcher for a police department in a city that I had no idea where it even was. So I kind of laughed it off. I bring it home. My husband sees it, and he goes, hey, I work in this city. I'm like, what do you mean? Because when he would be a paramedic on the ambulance, he worked for several different cities. He's like, yeah, I'll pick you up an application. I'm like, yeah, whatever. He made me fill it out. He took it back in there. And then he made me go to the interview.
Oh, so you almost blew off the interview too?
Oh yeah, because it was 6 months before I heard from anybody. I had no clue.
Oh.
Plus, I was a little bit cocky and a little bit arrogant and thinking like, you know what, if they wanted me, they would have contacted me. I was in for the freaking surprise of my life. So I applied 27 years ago. A year later, I was the very last person on the list of 500 people. I did that bad in my interview, and I'm telling you, the interview sucked bad.
Oh, really?
Oh my God, no idea what I was talking about. They said, what did you do to prepare for this interview? And I went, well, I bought this outfit. It was bad. But, law enforcement and police departments and fire departments, everybody's hard up for money. So they're like, hey, before we scratch this, we spent the money, interviewing her. Let's just see if she's worth it. 27 years later, I'm their best employee.
Damn.
I say awesome. That. I don't think my chief says it, but that's kind of all she wrote. So I kind of fell into it because my husband was pretty adamant.
That's awesome. Well, going back when Cruise Control mentioned earlier that I'd love doing the job. If you remember Cruise Control, when we were roommates, I did the suicide hotline. Remember?
Yes.
So that was
okay.
Yeah, so I did that. That was a volunteer position, but oh man, we had some interesting. I'll have to tell you if we got time. A pretty funny story that happened one time.
Okay.
But yeah, and I'm sure you've got plenty funny as well as scary ones.
Yeah.
Can you talk about one that like messed you up a little bit?
Yeah, I'm pretty open about things. Okay. Even if it were to trigger me, I feel it's important to get it out there.
Whatever you feel comfortable saying, obviously. So.
Oh, thank you very much. The worst call I ever took, I didn't actually take the call, and I wasn't actually doing anything. I was training somebody on the radio, and she was a great trainee. She really knew what she was doing, so I didn't have to do much. And we got a report of a missing child, a 2-year-old. And for 45 minutes, we were stuck like looking for this child. There was nothing else going on because we needed to find this child. 2 years old. I happen to have a 2-year-old at home myself. And so you connect yourself with these calls, whether you're a call taker, radio dispatcher, or as I found out, just sitting there listening to the call with your trainee. The baby was wearing Elmo shoes and Elmo swim trunks. Mm-hmm. And any moms of kids out there know when you go to Walmart or you go to Target or whatever, you get whatever is out there. And so all of your friends usually have the same shorts, especially as babies, y'all want like the cutest stuff for your baby. So my child had the same swim trunks and the same shoes and everything.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we had an airship overhead looking for him as well. And one of the things that you're trained on as a dispatcher when you have a missing child is to have them thoroughly check the house, like literally walk through with them. Okay, let's check under the beds. Okay, let's keep going. Let's check the the closets, et cetera, et cetera.
Get them thinking rationally again and get them focused on doing something productive instead of losing their shit.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Jet. Yeah, that's exactly it. So that's what we were doing. And then the call taker was like, what were you guys doing right before this? And they were like, well, we were next door to neighbors swimming. And so for whatever reason, the parents like, no, they're 2 years old. So nothing, there's no way that they're going to walk back over to the neighbor's house. But sure shit, they did. The helicopter was overhead, found him face down, like could see that he was face down in the pool. It had been about
Whoa.
an hour now. Um, for me,
Man.
that I just instantly saw my son in my mind because the same pants, the same shoes, the same age. It was a little boy as well. So for me, that's when, I kind of got fucked up in the head right there because I really couldn't keep it together. And then I've got the observer on the airship landing the helicopter because they're going to go save this kid, and we're in the middle of a residential neighborhood, so that's never heard of. And then one of my good buddies, his wife was a good friend of mine. And he was a cop for us. And so I was close with the family. He starts screaming out, I got the kid, I got the kid. I'm jumping in. And so just, you could just hear the anguish in his voice. He knew as well as everybody else did that it had been too long. They start CPR on the kid. Obviously he didn't live. And so for me, the connection with it being so close to my son's age, it did mess me up. It messed me up for a little bit. But that also, because I because I am one of 5 kids, if you wanted shit done, you did it yourself.
Right.
So I couldn't sleep after that. I was having nightmares, the whole 9 yards. And this was probably a good 20 years ago. So you
Mm,
didn't talk about stuff like this, and
Yeah.
you didn't let anybody know that it was messing you up because then you were quote unquote weak, et cetera, et cetera. And I wasn't going to put up with that. So um, I did some research. I don't even know if we had the internet back then, or don't know if I had access to it.
it was in
How
a
old am
baby stage around
Yeah,
that
it
time,
was
I think.
it was probably in a baby stage. So, again, my husband was a paramedic firefighter, so he was my sounding board. I talked to him a lot about it. And I just kind of learned that, it's a normal reaction because you identify so well with it. And that always stuck with me because I thought, well, if I'm feeling this, what are the guys feeling?
Mm,
And
yeah.
so the officer being a friend of mine, we did talk about it. It was probably the worst call he's ever been on, and he's a SWAT guy and the whole 9 yards. But there was nobody to blame here, and there was no suspect, and there was nobody to get mad at. So that lends a level of frustration for you when you're trying to deal with it. So we both talked about it a lot, and we moved on. But that started my journey into mental health and wellness. So
And you were on the phone with them when they discovered the child.
actually, no, I wasn't doing anything. I was sitting there listening to the radio that my trainee was on. I
Oh,
was
okay.
just listening to the whole
Uh,
9 yards. The call taker, I don't want to be rude because I don't know what her mindset was, but it didn't affect her at all. She was one of my supervisors, and she just hangs up the phone. She goes, "It is what it is, ladies." And
ah,
that's kind of one of my catchphrases now, being sarcastic. I say it sarcastically.
Yeah.
well, you know what?
um,
And oh, I'm sorry, not to cut you off.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, cruise control used to say to me, we're doing the suicide hotline. Remember, you'd always tell me, I'm really good at detaching myself from the emotional part of the
Yes.
whole thing.
Yes.
So I think that's a key trait to have when you're doing that kind of work, huh? Would you say?
Oh, 100%, yes. And you have to be able to be an effective call taker or dispatcher. And I'm a tactical dispatcher, so I work with my SWAT team. I've been FBI trained, crisis negotiator, the whole 9 yards. Like I know my shit. And with all of that being said, like I train our trainees like this is how you have to be, but that doesn't mean that you have to pack it and not unpack it. And so we just try that's like in 2024, we need to be unpacking all that shit that we're dealing with. But when you're on the job, you have a job to do. We want you to fall to your training when the shit hits the fan. And so that's why we develop that muscle memory and all of that. So far, Max, there's nothing I've said that you can't do. So I don't know why you're not behind a console right now. Let's get you there.
That was, you know what it was? They didn't want to do the accommodation. to go
Yeah.
in and actually look at the system and, provide the screen reading software and all that type of stuff.
Dang.
They were telling me that at the time, and here I'm dating myself now. I guess they were using Windows NT in those call centers. I don't know if that's what you
Okay.
guys were using back then, but she was saying, "Oh, Windows NT, it's not very compatible with the program at the time is called Window Eyes." And who
Yeah,
knows? It could be way different now. I mean,
it
there's a lot
is.
of developments, but back then, yeah, it was just Windows NT was the program that I guess they were using. And she did finally go down and check into it. And they said, "Oh, we can't really accommodate that. And, you got lives on the line. You can't have something that's not 100%." But I don't know if that was just bullshit and they just didn't want to help me, just, typical bureaucrat shit. It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
You're not like putting me cleaning up a cafeteria or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know,
and that that's probably what it was, to be honest with you. Like in 2024, the world needs more dispatchers. There's a girl that I follow, it's the Raspy Dispatcher on Instagram. Sorry if I
uh,
could just give a shameless plug.
I've never, I'll have to check her out. What's
She's
okay?
funny. She's hilarious. I've met her once, like, oh my God, I was a fangirl at a conference. It was embarrassing, but she has these stickers and her thing is the world needs more dispatchers. I even bought the shirt because I just so agree with it. Like
Huh.
in 2024, I would hope that somebody would go, you know what? He could do the suicide hotlines, which is probably one of the hardest parts of dispatching. He can do all that. Obviously, he could be in control. I mean, I just listening to some of your podcasts, like you got a good head on your shoulders, when we're not MFing people. No, I'm just kidding.
I
But
always controlled myself really well. You can ask Cruise Control.
just kidding. Like, oh great. You saw through that. Yeah, I did because the world does need more dispatchers. And I've come across dispatchers that deal with, I mean, I'm just gonna put it out there. 99% of the population of the world deals with something. It's just that 1% that we just don't like that probably are perfect. But but everybody is dealing with something, whether it's a physical ailment or a physical disability or a mental one. The best cops are bipolar because you have to be able to turn that shit off when you go home. Or when you're dealing with like a crisis, like a mental health crisis on the street versus, your average everyday criminal, you got to be able to change your personality and the way you speak to people and all that. So the ones that it's so easy to do that with are the ones that can handle the highs and the lows. That's bipolar by definition. So,
Right?
I don't know why we're not, or we never have been very accommodating. I think in 2024, I think we're a lot more accommodating than we have ever been.
I don't think it's the department though. I think
Mhm.
this was the Bureau of Services for the Blind just being lazy.
Oh, is that who it was?
Yeah, it was Bureau of Service. That's the thing. We have two players. We have the people and I will say the woman, her name was Officer Hoy or Hoyt, something like that, who was
Yeah.
the not the dispatcher or the supervisor that we went down and met. But it was my counselor, Bureau of Services for the Blind, who just was like, well, it's Windows NT and Window Eyes doesn't work well with that program. So who knows?
Yeah.
Again, we're dating myself, 1999. So,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, well, I guess we live and learn, right? Maybe somebody's hearing this and they've got an applicant that maybe I have a friend who's deaf. She has hearing aids and she's a dispatcher.
wow,
So yeah,
wow.
like
Oh,
like like when you think about it, okay, if you're blind, we could probably manage. I don't know, like I was thinking like some type of if Braille, like we could just give you a Braille keyboard or something.
well, I mean,
But
I use a
she's
regular keyboard. That's
yeah,
not a
there you go,
problem.
because you know where everything is. So I think that there'd be workable solutions, but she is
Hmm.
deaf and she works for an agency in North or South Carolina, I'm not sure. And they're like, yeah, that's not a problem. We'll just get you, there's this thing called blah, 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 and we just hook it up and we're good to go.
Hmm.
So that's pretty incredible. I
That's see
like
that,
hearing stuff like that.
that's an interesting thing though, Max. It's like if you had the opportunity to actually get in there and do that, it's hmm, you know.
I'm thinking the same thing. Like, shit, what a career change? Maybe possibility. It might be something
Because
worth looking into.
Because if Max could see, he definitely would be involved with law enforcement in some capacity in terms of out on the streets, either as a detective. I think more like the guy that like an actual uniformed officer type person. That's one reason why we have this on our show, is because he is so focused on that, because that's something that I think you like. I'm not speaking for Max, of course, but we talked about this before.
We've been friends since what?
Yeah.
Preschool.
Go ahead, date yourself again.
Yeah, and
I won't say the year, but hey.
Hey, we're young, man. Yeah, sure. No,
we're as young as we need to be, right?
Right.
So anyway, so obviously you got involved with that, and then you decided, obviously, and you saw how it was affecting yourself and others. And that there was probably is part of the reason why you started this, because there was not other resources for. I mean, there obviously, even right now, I'll let you go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I always interrupt. I'm a dispatcher. I interrupt everybody.
My thing is that as slowly over the years, there's definitely been more focus on PTSD for the officers out on the streets and stuff like that. But I'm sure that one of the reasons why you got this going was because the people on dispatch maybe were being ignored in this way. Or how did you get involved with this?
Yeah, I love that, because that's like, you can kind of just see it. So actually, in my department, we had a chief who he was just the best chief that I've ever had. I've had 5 or 6 of them, and he to this day is still my favorite. He's long retired, but he came to me and he came to 2 other people, and he said, "Hey, there's this thing called peer support. I don't know what it is, but I want you guys going to this conference, and I want you bringing it back here and starting this program." And that was the end of it. And I could really appreciate him giving us the latitude to explore what we needed to explore, and then he bring the program back to us. And that was the start of my peer support journey. So I've always been involved. That was in like, maybe, I don't want to give the date, because now my other chiefs will be like, "So I'm not her favorite chief, huh?"
Just in case they're listening now.
Right. So, but it was back in the day, and now they probably all know who it is now. But so that was my start. There were a few other instances. The biggest one, I don't want to say like politically speaking, but is the recognition as dispatchers as first responders. It's such a hot topic, like in like forums like social media, because you got all your keyboard warriors. I'm so not a keyboard warrior. I'll be a bitch to you to your face, not just on a keyboard, but
right.
But for me, like, it's just kind of a no-brainer. Like, when you think about it, a first responder, who is the literal first person to respond, and you get these closed-minded individuals that go, "You don't respond to anything."
Actually, you do.
The act of picking up the phone, you are responding. Hello.
Yep.
So that's kind of always been, something that we've had to deal with. And here in California, we are considered first responders. And a national association that I belong to, it's called NINA. They push this agenda, and they go up to Sacramento, and they've got a group that goes up there and lobbies for this. And then we have one nationally. We have a group that goes to Washington, D.C. and is trying to get a federal recognition for first responders. So that was part of it. Remember that supervisor that I said kind of got off the phone and was like, "Yeah, whatever."
It is what it is. The person.
Yeah, it is what it is. We had a shooting in dispatch, not physically in dispatch. Sorry. We had a shooting where our detectives were chasing a homicide suspect in another city, and everything was over the phone. And it was intense. And the thing about dispatchers is we're such type A. It's my way or the highway. I'm in control. So when you're not in control, if you're not used to that, it's kind of hard to navigate. So, I'm over the phone. I'm hearing these shots fired, and I'm kind of freaking out because I'm not real sure how to get them help. And my radio dispatcher, she was just on it. She cleared our air in our city for emergency traffic only, which kind of prompted our watch commander to kind of rush in to see what's going on. And so when he gets in there, he realizes, "Oh shit, we've just had a shooting, blah, 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 and we're in a different city." I called the city where we were, and I said, "My detectives are there. They have the homicide suspect. This is what they said to me." They said, "Okay, we're following them. We're mobile. Hey, can you get us units? We're turning down some alleyway." This is literally, I'm quoting him. "We're turning down some alleyway. and oh shit. And then you hear shots fired, shots fired, shots fired, and then running footsteps and nothing else. I don't know
Oh
where the fuck they
shit.
are. Yeah, I don't know where the fuck they are. And so I'm like, oh my God, like, what do I do? So I call that other agency. And to this day, I have no idea if that dispatcher realizes what a hero he is. I tell him what they told me. He says, I know where they are. And within 30 seconds, longest 30 seconds of my life, I've got sirens in the background.
Hmm.
And it's because that dispatcher knew his city. He knew where they were because we told him ahead of time. And then just by me giving like the play by play, he knew exactly where they were. And to this day, I swear if I ever knew who that guy was, I'd go up and I'd hug him because I feel like he's a big part of why my detectives are, still walking on this earth today. So that was another big one. And same supervisor, she comes into work and she's my relief. And I kind of say, hey, I don't know if my partner's going to come back tonight. She's pretty shaken up. We had a shooting last night. And she goes, what? You had a shooting? And I told her, and she goes, oh my God, stop being dramatic. You didn't have a shooting. Nothing happened here. So kind of pissed
Wow.
me off. Went home, didn't sleep a wink, came back to work, and the detectives' wives had sent in some presents for us. And that was kind of like the catalyst for me is like, you know what? Somebody gets it. Somebody gets it. We were just as involved. But we weren't allowed to talk about it. And then my supervisor pulled me aside and she says, hey, I had to pull that tape and I heard what you heard and it really bothered me. So good job.
It's
But you're
interesting.
still not getting any days off.
Well, what's crazy is, and that's why I'm glad we thank you for your service, because like you said, you are the true first responder, the first person to respond to the call. And you guys are on the front line. Just because you're in an office doesn't mean you're not actually, involved directly with what's
Right,
going on.
yeah. Just because I didn't raise my hand and swear an oath to the Constitution, which by the way I did. um yeah, like we're somehow less than, and that narrative needs to go away.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with people's perception of focusing on sight in a lot of ways and
Yes.
not focusing on the auditory aspects of memory and trauma and how things happen. I'll give you a little example. I was sitting in I remember exactly, it was like 3 years ago, Christmas, like right around Christmas time. And I had the window open just because it was like getting some air in, of course. And I live in a little apartment complex in a parking lot. And I was just listening and I heard some guy talking, going, hey, and some of the people were walking through our complex, and this guy got in a little altercation, and he started talking. He goes, "Hey, what are you talking about? Like, get out of here, or something like that." And then I heard
Yeah.
like a scuffle and a crack,
Oh.
and I hear, ah, oh my God, my shoulder, my shoulder, oh. And in my mind, I'm not involved directly with that at all. I'm not even in control. So it's not like I have any personal aspect in it, like a first responder who actually has to react and actually have to do the right thing to maybe save a life or so. But I get that goosebumpy, oh
Oh
shit,
yeah, you get that
adrenaline
adrenaline
feeling.
dump.
And I'm going, oh fuck, this guy's going, oh, help me. Oh. And then I see the lights of the ambulance come in and get this guy. But I didn't have any direct involvement with that at all. Yet that's still something I think about all the fucking time. Because
Oh
my
yeah. Well,
mind is
you were a
it's
witness. You were
exactly.
definitely a witness to whatever happened. It doesn't matter that you didn't physically see it.
Or that I was safe in my apartment. That the only thing that not like going out there obviously would have escalated, but still being in that environment, I still felt that adrenaline. I was like, oh my God. But that's not even close to what somebody who's going to be feeling that on the phone with somebody, especially if they're hearing someone attack somebody, which happens all the
Yeah.
time, or just some
Yeah.
yelling or screaming, or like I said, you're trying to revive somebody or a baby or anything, and of course the emotion in their voice when they're going, "Oh my God, my brother's been shot," or something like that, or anything like that. Like
Yeah.
people don't get that. That's going to stick with you just as much, especially when you've got a personal responsibility stake involved with it. Like you have to make the right decision at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. You are 100% correct. I couldn't have said it better. And that's what we need to educate people on. And, I kind of sometimes I get into like the nitty gritty of like the medical aspect of it, of like PTSI and all of that. But to process trauma, when you are in a traumatic incident, you process that trauma, or you don't process it, but you take in that trauma with your five senses. And so if one of those senses isn't actually seeing it. They're still seeing a keyboard, or whatever they're seeing, they're taking that in. So when you want to talk about like triggering or something like that, you're still sitting in front of that same keyboard. And let's say you take a shooting as a call taker, and the shooting happens over the phone. And, the next time you're involved in a shooting, you do have that memory aspect of it. You're staring at the same keyboard, you're staring at the same computer. And if you haven't processed that trauma, it could lead to PTSI, which is it's the same route for any officer, any paramedic, any firefighter, any first responder in the field. It's the same effects. You still have the adrenaline dumps. You still have it running through your body. You still have extremely high cortisol levels going through your body
Yep.
and
Yes.
causing all these problems. But the difference is, and I'm not trying to say that we're any more victims than anybody else,
No, of
because
course not.
it is. But
It's
what I'm
distinct.
saying
Yeah.
is that when a dispatcher is handling a critical incident, you have to look at how many critical incidents they're actually handling. Because when somebody goes on scene, they're dealing with the shooting, stabbing, whatever, and the dispatchers are handling it. We don't put 911 calls on hold. We don't put calls on hold. We don't put other people's emergencies on hold to handle that one. We're handling 3 or 4 or 5 at a time. And so we don't get the break afterwards. We don't get to run after a suspect, which sometimes I would love to do. We don't get to run after people and get rid of that adrenaline dump with physical activity. We just sit behind the console and go, 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 go until our shift is over. And then we're expected to go home and eat well and have a good night's sleep and have a perfect marriage and family so that we can come back in 12 or 6 or 8 hours and do it all again. So if there's no recognition of that trauma or helping to process it, you're going to lose dispatchers at an alarming rate. And we do. We do lose them at alarming rates.
The other thing too is the guess part of it, because you don't know. You might hear some noises and go, "What was that?" And it sounds really bad, and you're going, "Oh shit!" And you think the worst, but you didn't actually see it, so you can't. You don't have a definite. Oh, that's what happened. All you can do is speculate. Based on what you heard.
Based on what you heard. Yes, 100%. And we train our dispatchers to think worst case scenario. So in their mind, you'll hear a zip tie and you're already thinking, oh, that's how they're going to kill themselves. They're going to strangle themselves with a zip tie. And they're simply tying up some electrical cords or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
the first thing.
You train these dispatchers to, it gets kind of funny because you train them to think worst case scenario, to give all information to the officers or the paramedics or the firefighters. You train them to just think all these nasty, nasty things. Oh, but then you expect them to turn around and just be nice to their partners and not be, they're stuck with a headset and a cord to a desk for 12, 16 hours a day. But, we're not going to give you time off or anything like that, but we still expect you to be a normal human being when you walk away from that console. And that's what kind of makes me laugh. And that was the beginning of me looking into the 911 Wellness Project. But the sheer stubbornness and hard-headedness of law enforcement and fire departments and EMS agencies led me to make sure that it's something that all first responders can benefit from. So I have a heart for dispatch, and they're my heroes. So I will always focus on that, but that's me. There are other parts to the organization, my husband being the financial part, so he kind of oversees everything. But my son, whom I don't think I'll get emotional, but if I do, I apologize. My son just graduated the police academy last week. So
congratulations.
Wow. Congrats.
thank you. So he was a paramedic down in the city where he lives in Southern California. And apparently he wasn't making enough change. He was diagnosed with MS on his honeymoon.
No shit.
I know, right? We have no history of it in our family. And so I didn't, prior to that, the first part of their honeymoon, they were actually with us up in Lake Tahoe. And prior to that, he had made some comments and he was kind of being a little asshole. So I was being a little asshole back. And he had said, well, actually, I think I have MS. And I was like, oh, God, like, stop being dramatic. So I will forever, until the day that I die, feel guilty for that from a mom perspective. But then 2 weeks later, he was on his honeymoon at Walt Disney World and had to fly back and was immediately seen, and I think ended up being in the ICU for a couple of days. And so was such a wake up call to us about being healthy, because we do have diabetes that runs in the family and all of that. And he's just
Mhm.
such a healthy individual. So then, having MS and trying to get it under control, he couldn't really work in the field as a paramedic. And his company, much to their credit, they seem to be understanding. Of course, I'm a third party. He probably doesn't agree with me. But he's a great teacher. And so they put him in a training position, and he ended up running the training department. So when he said he wanted to be a police officer because he just felt he wasn't giving back enough, I was I was concerned. But over the last 6 months with him in the academy, yeah, my son has bloomed and he has found his calling, and so I'm extremely proud of him. Um, but
So he
then,
keeps the MS under control, I guess, so that, because that's crucial.
oh
as
my
as
gosh, he is so. First of all, he is so athletic and so healthy. He wanted to be a not a paratrooper. What is it where you jump out, like the game Halo is the thing that you
Hmm.
do.
Uh,
Um, like a Halo jumper, I think it's called, or no, a parajumper.
para jumper or yeah, something.
I would
Yeah,
have thought paratrooper, but that's
paratrooper, parajumper. He wanted
Yeah,
to be a
paratrooper.
badass
Yeah,
in the military. And so he had trained for that before he became a paramedic. For whatever reason, he's not stupid. He's very smart. And I think when he went to go talk to a recruiter, he could see that they were kind of giving him the runaround, like, yeah, that's a good goal, like maybe someday you'll get there, just go ahead and sign this paperwork and then we'll get you in there. We all know that unless you get it in writing before you go into the military for what you want to do, you're not going to do it. You're going to be a grunt, you're going to go where they want you to, which,
yeah,
again, it is what it is. This is where we need you. And so we have enough soldiers and enough Marines that go out there like, just use me wherever you can. But he wanted to do something specific. So he ended up going to paramedic school, and then all of that. So he'd always been in good shape, but he was really sick when he was diagnosed. And so he, picked himself up, and he, like I said, he was on his honeymoon. So he just recently been married. And I'll tell you that my daughter-in-law makes him a better man. So that's how you know it, like that marriage is right, because she just brings out everything good and whole, and uh, just everything great in him. And then she
mhm,
healed that side of him that maybe was a little dark or was a little lost. And so this is my kid now, and he's like, I got to get healthy, I don't want to be on medication. So he does like a bi-yearly infusion, and he actually had to skip it because he was in the academy and he couldn't take a couple days off. And he still has had no side effects, no nothing. He's dealing with new insurance because it's a new job. So he still hasn't gone in, and there's absolutely nothing going on. His MS, I think we call it remission. I'm not too well versed in it, because he's not focusing on like the
yeah,
terminology, so I'm not going to.
right.
I just know that he lives a very full life, and he does not let it stop him. And that department that hired him, they didn't have any problems with it because they saw what he was, or what he is. And he proved to them during the academy he was one of the top. He even got an EVOC award at graduation. See, I am getting emotional. I am
That's
so damn proud of this kid.
that's
that's
So,
awesome
awesome.
though. That's not why
Well,
yeah,
why not be proud of him? Jeez.
and
I
obviously
know it. Oh,
yeah, your
man.
whole family is involved with it, and in terms of law enforcement, which is awesome. So yeah, so let's so basically going back to the wellness. So you got that start. When did this actually program get started, and how long has it been going on?
2019 is when we made the decision to go for it. So my husband was talking about, like, Glenna, what's your dream? What's your goal? What's your end goal? I thought he was talking about like end of life stuff. It was a scary conversation, but
Right.
uh,
What do you plan to do? You got a
yeah.
advanced directive or what? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I'm like, oh, where's this going? My husband, fast forward, my husband is now a geologist. He was retired medically from the fire service. Um, he does suffer from PTSD. I think I finally got him to admit to it. It's not something that he has gotten treatment for. It's just something that we've tried to navigate. But I lost my dad in 2015. He was a fire chief for a small rural department where he absolutely loved it. And that was after his career as an oil person.
Oh,
So all of those things happened. I went through a lot of shit because of that, and then just because of the kids getting older and stuff like that. So 2019, he asked me, "What is your dream?" And we went into it, and my ultimate goal would be to have some type of intense type of retreat for first responders to be able to decompress and find out who they are and find out the person that sits inside of all of that trauma. And then he said, "Well, how do you get there?" And that's where 911 Wellness Project came from in December of 2019. So do we all know what happened in January of 2020?
uh-huh.
The
Yeah, we
world
all
shut
do.
down. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we really got into the nitty gritty of it. So I want to be a for-profit company because I want to take money and dump it into people. I want to take money and dump it into dispatchers that don't get training. In California, we're mandated to have 24 hours of training. I quickly realized that that was the way to go through police officer standard of training. I got that certification. Um, the biggest part of my training right now is actually peer support, though. I'm not really training a lot of dispatchers, just because outside of California, they don't get a lot of training. Utah, I know, has some standards, but I'm talking to dispatchers from like Kentucky and Maryland and Louisiana that, other than, hey, this is a phone, don't kill anybody, that's their training.
And I was gonna comment on that actually because I listen to a lot of 911 calls, on YouTube, and there's some call takers that ask some really dumb questions and make some dumb statements. Like I remember
Yes.
there was one I heard where the guy, I guess he had accidentally shot his son or whatever, and the call taker says, "Do you have a defibrillator handy?" Oh yeah, I got that right in the drawer here. Let
Oh,
me just
yeah.
pull
Don't, I mean, it's sitting right next to me. Yeah.
right. Like I just thought, Jesus Christ, man, some of these people they really seem kind of inept in some
Yeah.
cases.
Okay. In their defense, let me just defend that
Okay.
particular dispatcher. EMD is emergency medical dispatch, and you have, oh God, I'm so old. You have these cards. I'm sure it's on the computer now, but I don't deal with EMD anymore. That is a question that you are required to ask.
Oh,
If
really?
they call in and they say, um, "Hey, my dad's not breathing," you flip to that card, and the first question is he conscious? No, he's not breathing. Okay, is he breathing? You're required. See, that's just asinine. You are required to
Ah,
ask those questions.
so they're
So,
making those questions, even if it's stupid and
oh yeah,
irrelevant,
oh
obviously.
yeah,
Okay.
and that's leading to robotic dispatchers that are completely burnt out because there's no oversight. And just see, that's the biggest problem I have where I work is I am so mama bearish over my community that if you call 911 and you're a member of my community or you're visiting my community, you're going to get the best service possible. And it may not sound like it to you, but we're trained to ask closed-ended questions, get those answers. So when we have to transfer to the fire department and we give them the address because they just accidentally shot their son and they can't coherently give an address. "Sir, I can't
Hmm.
help you till I have an address." And then they argue, "Well, you were just given it. I don't know the address. Just get somebody here." "Okay, you need to give me the address. You need to give me the address. You need to give me the address." I want to kill somebody. I'm just like, really? I gave you the damn address. Get somebody over there. But they're
Right.
mandated it, and they can literally lose their job if they get too many out of compliance complaints. They have somebody that's, "Oh, they didn't ask this question, and that's number three."
Ah, God. Some bureaucrat in there.
Yes, yes.
uh,
Yep.
EMD
Yep.
is actually a really good thing. It started out as a really good opportunity, and you still have departments that don't have the quality control. So you're able to like be a human in asking those questions. But
hmm.
so many places now you get the bureaucrats involved and they want numbers. We're dealing with humans and they want numbers,
Yeah. Yeah.
so okay, so but not to say there aren't stupid people out there that call in and just like the dispatchers have no idea how to respond to all this crap. My
well,
husband and I
that's
were watching a video the other night and I'm screaming at the TV. This is why I can't watch shows involving dispatchers.
right, because you live it. I mean, that's your
Oh my
thing.
God. I'm like, answer the damn question. Like the dispatcher was asked a question by the caller. It was a suicidal caller. I'm like, God, be human. Come on. And
Yeah,
then we
yeah.
were watching another one where, yeah, somebody had been shot. Oh, it was an elderly lady had been shot and handcuffed, but then she shot and killed the intruder. And like he kept repeating himself. He was so in shock. He couldn't believe he was getting this phone call. And so he kept asking questions and I'm giving him the answer. I'm like, she's already said that.
Well, that's the one side of it, but also you get the dummy that calls in, and they'll say, hurry, hurry, get here. And you're going, well, my questions aren't going to slow down the first responders from
Yes.
showing up.
Yep.
I think that's a misconception too. Oh, if you sit here and ask me a shitload of questions, it's going to, slow the first responders down. That's not the case.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And through training, those dispatchers could navigate that. Through training, they could say, sir, exactly what you said, Max, exactly what you said. That's what we tell our dispatchers to tell those callers. Low and slow it down, make sure they understand that help is on the way, that nothing you do is slowing it down. And you're building that rapport with that person who's experiencing probably the worst moment of their life. And they're going to remember the moment that you took to calm them down and and reassure them that help is on the way. And it takes what, 2 seconds to do that?
Yeah.
But if you're not trained, which so many dispatchers don't get the training that they need, then you're fumbling and you're like this caller, or you're like this dispatcher that I saw the other night, repeating the questions that he's asking this poor lady who's been shot and is handcuffed and has been that way for like 20 hours.
Jesus.
Yeah, I know. It was intense. I thought about that call for a long time and I actually, you're going to laugh, actually wrote down a scenario where it changed. Like if I could train that dispatcher, this is how I would train him.
So you wrote a whole script of this thing? Like, oh, this is what I would
I
do.
I did because now I want to develop a class for those dispatchers that have been on duty for maybe 2 or 3 years. I want to go into active listening questions and a little bit of crisis negotiation because it works with victims, with suspects, with anybody. And I want to get into these classes where when you talk about like sexual assault, if your victim calls you and let's say they had just been raped and they sound drunk,
Oh,
whatever you do not put that in the call that caller sounds HBD or caller may be drinking.
what's HBD? That's what is that?
Has been drinking.
Has been okay. Got you.
Yeah. So like medical terms, it's like ETOH or something like that, stands for like ethanol alcohol. But
Ah.
us law enforcement folk, we kind of dumb it down. HBD, has been drinking.
Okay. All right.
So, I want to develop this class where it talks about like how to properly help this person in the now, because that person's going to suffer from the post-traumatic stress and is going to have a long road of recovery. And if you can, from the very get-go, show empathy and show professionalism and be that hero for that person, which you are, but they may not realize it depending on if you're yelling and screaming at them or disregarding what they say because you think they're drunk. That could, the outcome could be so much better for the dispatcher and for the victim. And all it takes is training.
Man, that's okay. Well, it answers some questions for me for sure.
Okay.
Because like I
Good.
said, that was one of the things that I would always one of my observations of listening to those calls. But let's talk about another aspect of dumbass calls. How about those
Good,
people
okay.
that abuse the system? Like they'll call in. Okay, like I see a lot of these too. They're traffic stops, and they don't like that the cop is telling them to get out of the car. They don't do this, so they'll call 911 on the police.
Yeah.
It's those people.
So I do have to say, the community where I work, it's pretty unique in that I think we have 100% support from our community. Our council supports us and loves us and is so involved with what we do. I'm right now at this moment taking a leadership class through the city, not through the police department, but through the city, because only simply because they want to foster that relationship between city employees and law enforcement employees. I just have such a great city. With that being said, I don't get a lot of those calls from people in the community, but do you know who I get them from are those First Amendment auditors that see.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get Max started on that.
Yeah. Oh, I watched
Sovereign
Yeah,
those
I
videos
know.
too.
sovereign citizens,
Yep,
right?
the Sobtards. Yes, yes.
Oh my Lord, just heaven help me. So uh, obviously you guys kind of know me a little bit. I keep interrupting you. I always want to talk. Well, get me on the phone with one of them and I'm having a blast, right? But I do work for somebody. I do get a paycheck from somebody, so I do have to be somewhat professional. Uh,
Right.
but those are who we really have to deal with is getting calls like that. I will say that every once in a while, like in the middle of the night, and we encourage them to call 911 if they're afraid that maybe this cop isn't for real, um, or they just want somebody to be on the phone with them while they get their traffic ticket for whatever reason.
Right.
But yeah, they I don't have a lot to say other than wow, those guys are idiots. Like
That's
just
they'll call the police on the police. I've seen them all the time.
yeah, yeah. It is kind of funny. I do have a funny call. I wish I had it with me. It's probably from like 10 years ago, but it's we call it the Hartford hotline. So I'm imagining it's like Hartford, Connecticut.
Okay.
Dispatcher gets a call from some guy who has been kidnapped and is taking it seriously and is taking the information. And he's a great dispatcher. And he suddenly realizes that everything he says sounds like he's been arrested. And so
Oh,
he gets on like an intercom between his agency and another agency where there's a big incident happening. And he says, "Hey, just want to let you know that I have a guy saying he's here," which is in that other agency, and that he's been kidnapped and that he's in the back of a car and they've handcuffed him. It is so funny. I
so he
just,
was getting arrested, is what was going
oh
on, but
yeah,
he was calling it in as a kidnapping.
yeah, he said that he had gotten, that somebody tackled him and beat him up and he was trying to get away and he's been kidnapped. He's in the back of the car and he needs help.
That's hilarious. But that's what's
Yeah.
annoying too.
It's extremely annoying. And you're taken away from somebody that may have a real emergency. So stop doing that shit. But
Right.
then we do have a lot of mental health. And I'm in California. We have the highest homeless population of the United States. So we deal with a lot of homelessness, a lot of mental illness, et cetera, et cetera. So
Mhm.
the abuse of 911 is insane with our community that deals with mental illness and mental health issues and drug addiction and all of that. So yeah, it gets frustrating.
I can imagine. So, I wanted to ask you on this show that I heard, you talked about the three word something with
Oh,
911.
yeah. What is it called? These three words or
These three words,
something
some
like that. Yeah, I think it's like these three words. So what it is, it's an app. So with us, like with all this new technology that's coming about, we're 20 years behind where we should be in technology, but we're slowly trying to catch up. And I mean law enforcement as a whole, not just my agency. So when you call 911, these three words, that's what it's called. When you call 911 on a cell phone, we get an approximate location. And with that approximate location, it gives us the percentile of the accuracy of the location. And then we have the ability to retransmit that information to us every 30 seconds or so. So let's say that there is like an active shooter or something at a high school. Very serious situation. There's a lot of crap going on. You got to really be on your game. You get a call from a student and they're calling from the high school, and you can see that they're calling from the high school or the general vicinity. You know where they are, but you
Okay.
don't know where they are in the high school. So
Ah,
this app, which you have to preload it onto a phone system, something like that, because it is an app. When we get the 911 calls, there's other systems called Rapid SOS, which is a company that gives us latitude and longitude information, and it's more accurate than our screens. And then there's also another company called Rapid Deploy that gives us the same information. Rapid SOS is not based on our 911 screen, and Rapid Deploy is. So those are the differences between the two. So we utilize the two, and up in the corner of each one of these applications that we have on our computers for Deploy and Rapid SOS are 3 words. And if we take those 3 words and we put them in this application, this other application, it will pinpoint the location of where that person is calling from. So let's say they're calling from the Science Center, or they're calling from room 105. It will give us that information as long as it has it. You know, if somebody didn't preload this information in, then it's going to be not as accurate, but it gives us a better opportunity to be able to get right to victims right away.
So does somebody have to download this app to their phone to make this work correctly, or is it something you guys have on your end?
It's something that we have on our end. So if you, cool. Max, if you were called 911 right now, don't do it, please. But if you were,
don't worry.
But if you were, the screen that the dispatcher gets comes on her phone or his phone. And then if they had these other 2 programs, Rapid Deploy and or Rapid SOS, and I prefer Rapid SOS, just so you're aware.
Okay.
If you have those things on your computer, if you're allowed internet access and you have those on your computer, all you have to do is just look up in one of the corners, and you'll see those. It's called these 3 words. I'm pretty sure it's called these 3 words. And you take those 3 words and you put them into an app that you've already downloaded onto your phone, and then it gives you the actual location.
That's pretty dope.
It is, right? But here's what you have to consider. Number 1, does the dispatcher have internet access? CHP, as far as I know, does not. So I'm in California, so CHP is our highway patrol. As far as I know, they do not, or at least the comm centers that I have spoken to, they don't.
That's surprising.
There's so many agencies because, and I'm going to say this with all the love in the world, dispatchers are manipulators. We are required to be for our job, but like I said, it's not something that we can just turn off. So A, we are manipulators. B, we want what we want. And if we aren't given the let's say, love and guidance that we have, there can be shenanigans. So instead of training our dispatchers and treating them like the professionals that they are, a lot of times they just shove them into a dark room and say, don't kill anybody. And that can lead to boredom and other things. And so instead of addressing the problems, a lot of times admin will say, we don't want to give them internet access. They're going to end up watching porn or something. And it's like, really, with everything that we have available to us nowadays, do you really think that we're going to get on a work computer and watch things we're not supposed to? But then the answer is yes, we actually would, because it's happened.
I'm sure it has.
Yeah, but then you get rid of those people, and you know, it's like, well, some people will do stupid things, so we shouldn't have those things. Well, that's going to be that's why you have rules in place.
Yes, yes. And if you're going to take the time to hire these employees, take the time to weed out the bad ones. That's your job. That's the whole reason why we have admin, and the whole reason why we've got rules and policies. But instead, a lot of times they'll just be like, well, we don't want a problem. We had a supervisor, like a captain, who wouldn't let us turn the lights all the way off in dispatch. We have 7 monitors, and he wouldn't let us turn all the lights off because there could be shenanigans. Really?
So wait, he's afraid that what you guys are going to like play horseplay or something, or
I'm not real sure. I mean, like I'm not going to go down the route that we all think that he was going, like being under our consoles and stuff like that. But I can tell you from firsthand, not experience, I won't say that. I swear, if my husband's watching this, I've never cheated on you. But like at our old station, we used to bring officers to the very back of dispatch and give them like 3 or 4 chairs so that they could sleep, because we don't want them sleeping out in the field. But they're exhausted. They're at a 20-hour shift and they've had court all day. It's not safe for them to be in the field. But instead of, and for admin that's listening, this was like 20 years ago.
It's past the statute of limitation.
Yeah, there is a statute of limitations. And I think my last lieutenant was one of the ones that we did this for. So we're good. But so more things like that. But if you wanted to screw around with an officer, yeah, if the lights are off and you want to go in the back, great, go ahead, go do it. Like, I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. So just treat these dispatchers as the professionals that they are. Give them the training that they need to do their job, and they're not going to do the things that you think they're going to do when the lights are off. Or if they are, take care of it and get rid of that dispatcher and that officer.
Yep.
But be that as it may, wow, I think we went off on a tangent on that one.
Yeah,
What were we talking about?
Anyway, let's bring it back. So let's get some information, obviously, on what people can do to reach you, and all the good stuff, in terms of like what the contact information is, where you're at right now. You got any events coming up or anything that you want to
plug,
promote? Yeah, plug and stuff like that. So.
Okay, so you can reach 911 Wellness Project at 911wellnessproject@gmail.com. That is our email.
Okay.
We do have a website, 911 Wellness Project. It gives kind of an overview of who we are, how we support first responder agencies. There are not a lot of training classes on there because I don't put content out for money. I put content out for need. So I started doing customized training because I wanted to know what the need was out there. I know what the need is for my department, but it's going to be different for somebody who even works in fire. So there are a few classes that I give regularly. A lot are peer support related, but for any dispatcher that's listening, for any type of training that you want, contact me and let's get it to your agency. I am a for-profit company, and so I do charge, but if you can't afford the training, there's other things we can do, like online services or something like that. I'm not saying that my services are free, but there are things that we can do because I know there is a need. My phone number, the cell phone number, which by the way,
do you want to give that out? I don't know if you want to give that out.
Well, it's on the website. It's
okay.
Yeah, it's 760 area code 887-6973. I don't answer it a lot. When I talk to Will when I talk to Max, it says Will right next to my computer. When I talk to Max, he answered the phone. Hello.
Yeah, she did answer the phone when I called. She picked up. I was like, oh.
Because I was pissed because I was getting so many spam calls. It was so funny. So I had to apologize to him because normally I say, either hello, this is Glenna or 911 Wellness Project. And I was like, I wanted to say, what the fuck do you want? But I didn't. I'm so glad.
That would have been okay too. That would have been like, hey, you sound like me.
Yeah.
So you guys are on Facebook and Instagram too, yeah?
We are. I do have a Facebook account. I do have an Instagram account for the business. I don't post regularly because that's not my focus. My focus is people. And you have to do a certain algorithm for both of those. But I do put content on there that I think is funny or relevant. I do share my personal life on there because I think it's important to practice what you preach. So I want people to see what my life looks like, good, bad, or ugly. So that's mainly what's on there. And I do put my classes on the on the Facebook. Oh my God, I'm so old. On Facebook, on Instagram, so that I can get it out there. Right now, I mostly teach in California, but I'm certainly open to teaching anywhere where there's a need.
So that's the demographic that you're looking for mainly, is like a people in the field of 911 call taker / dispatcher kind of thing.
Yeah, for training classes. For peer support, that's agency specific. Police, fire, EMS. I even do healthcare. I can come into an agency and help you set up a peer support program and then give you training for your peer support staff and then teach you how to keep it going. Because most peer support most peer support programs will fade away after the year because you're going to get a lot of pushback. You're going to get a lot of, I don't need that. You're going to get a lot of any type that there's a question about mental health or anything like that. Oh, I'm not weak. I'm not going to talk to anybody about, what's going on. There's still that stigma. But I come into an agency and I teach all that. And then I teach the officers, I teach the dispatchers, I teach any and all non-sworn, because even records, has to read these reports. And so when you're reading like about a child, a 3-year-old child that has been continually sexually abused for the last year, you're not just necessarily going to disregard that and go home and have dinner. You still have to process that. So
Right.
Absolutely.
a lot of education. And when I say I have a team that does that. So for the fire department aspect, I'm not a fire department employee. I was the only law enforcement employee in my family, but I do have people like my husband who has experience in the fire department, my son who has experience in the fire department. My dad, God rest his soul, was, a firefighter. And so I have knowledge, but I'm going to get you the experts. So I have people on my staff that are experts in that field. If you're a paramedic for a private ambulance company, your needs are going to be a little bit different. And so I have experts that can help you in that as well.
Wonderful.
Wow.
Wonderful.
That's awesome. Well, we wanted to thank you again for spending time with us.
Oh, you're so welcome. This was so much fun.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Absolutely. It was fun. Like I said, I've been wanting to get a 911 person on here for a long time, and I just kept getting shot down. So I'm like, all right, so glad you were able to come and hang out with us for a little bit.
Yeah, good luck with everything going for you. Hope everything works out and successful for you in the business. It's helping other people out. That's kind of the best thing too, is being able to kind of make some money as well while you're helping other people and doing good deeds.
100%,
and thank you once again for your service. Any other final directions? I guess we got your Facebook page and everything else out there. So
yeah.
Any
first responder that is in crisis and doesn't know where to go, get in touch with somebody. If it's me, I don't counsel, but I will get you in touch with somebody that can help you. But even 988, which is the National Suicide Hotline, even call them if you need to. But any first responder in crisis, you're there because you haven't had the support and training from your agency, and you deserve better, and you deserve to get the best treatment possible so that you could live the best life. You're our heroes, and so we want to make sure that you're taken care of. And that goes for military as well. But anybody that is suffering like that, especially first responders, please reach out for help.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
On that note, well,
stick around with us for just a second. We'll wrap up after we end the show. But thank you so much. Go ahead, Max. You can
absolutely. And I am Maxwell Silverhammer.
Actually, this is Glenna. Yeah, go.
This is the Nothing Sacred interview with Glenna of the 911 Wellness Project.
Yes. I am Cruise Control.
I'm Maxwell Silverhammer.
And that's the story there. Bitches. Later.
We are nothing sacred. We are nothing sacred. We are nothing sacred.
With Maxwell Silverhammer.
We are nothing sacred. With cruise control. We are nothing sacred.